Good morning, everybody. This is Buddhism 305, Buddhism in East Asia. Today's date is April 17th, 2023. Our third session, I guess. Yes, third session. And I hope you all are doing great with the classwork and every other things. And as I repeat every time, if you have any questions, please email me or call me, depending on the time. And let's move forward, okay? So we were looking at the fundamental Buddhist teachings, which provide the backbone for the Buddhist traditions that evolved in other countries, because we are looking at the Buddhism in East Asia. So East Asia, to what extent the basic Buddhist teachings influenced. If you can see any resemblance or any evolvement, any development from the basic Buddhist teachings in those countries, China, Korea, Japan, especially. So today, we are going to look at the important Buddhist historical events that took place in India within the first 5 centuries of history of Buddhism in India. Why we are looking at the first 5 centuries only? Because that is very important period where you find the foundation for Buddhist influence in other countries. So, you know, we are repeating certain things, but that's okay. The Buddha's birth took place in the 6th century BCE. So that is an important event, of course. And because of Buddha's birth, his enlightenment, a lot of things happened and evolved after that. Remember that Buddha did not want to start a religion per se. He wanted to freely make his teachings available. He had discussions, dialogue with others, and they were not recognized as Buddhist as we use the term today. Anyhow, later on, it evolved as a religion with many other cultural things. So we have to understand this fact. Otherwise, you may think that Buddha is the one who founded this religion. If you say like that, that's completely wrong. Buddha did not found any religion, but he made certain philosophical discoveries and he presented them to the world, not to Buddhists, but to the whole world. And later on, we are the people who framed it as Buddhism and Buddhist teachings and Buddhist practices and Buddhist cultural things and all sorts of things. That's very important fact that you have to remember all throughout your school. Not just in this class, in other classes too, you have to remember that fact. So anyway, so the Buddha's birth took place in the 6th century BCE, and as you may know, he was born in Kapilavatthu. Kapilavatthu means the today's Nepal, Lumbini. Those are now historical sites and very sacred places for Buddhists all over the world. And then after his birth, you know that he had royal luxuries in his family. He had all kinds of things in the family, and later he became sort of disappointed with that life, and he wanted to find a way out of this suffering. We have discussed this thing before. He wanted to get out of the suffering, and then he said goodbye to his family life and became a mendicant. Mendicant means one who is looking for truth or looking for salvation by or through practicing austerities. Austerities means giving hardships to his body. So those are the two ends that the Buddha recognized, that those two ends will not bring any benefit to you. What are the two extremes? The word used is extremes. What are the two extremes? The first one is called enjoying the sensory pleasures, so sensual pleasures. When the Buddha was born into the royal family, he had all kinds of luxuries. He could enjoy the luxuries of life, you know, everything. But he became disappointed because he saw that this is an extreme in life. When you have, excuse me, when you have everything in excess, that is extreme, right? So that's why he wanted to try the other one. He thought that enjoying luxuries, enjoying the senses is not the answer for this thing. This thing means to escape from suffering. That is a hindrance. That is a obstacle. And then he wanted to try the other extreme, which is called self-mortification. Self-mortification, giving hardships or pain to one's body. So those two ends, in Pali it's called Kama Sukhallika Nuyoga, enjoying the sensual pleasures, and the other one, self-mortification or Atta Kilamata Nuyoga. Those two ends, extremes, he was following. After leaving the palace. He spent 6 long years giving pain to his body, enjoying pain. According to his view, that was enjoying pain. For what? For the purpose of attaining the reaching the salvation, or reaching or finding a solution for the perpetual issue of suffering. Okay. And later he found those two ends are not practical, not beneficial, not meaningful. And then he changed his stance, he changed his position, and he thought that a middle way or the middle path is the solution. And at the age of 35, when he was sitting under the Bodhi tree, he became enlightened. We call it awakened, enlightenment or awakened. So that actually the word Buddha, the word meaning is awakened one. So he became awakened at the age of 35, and then he was called the Buddha. Buddha means the awakened one, enlightened one. So that is the most important event in the Buddhist history. Of course, we are focusing on Indian Buddhist history. So that's the most important event. And then afterwards, he decided to share his understanding, share his discovery with the rest of the world. That's why he traveled all over with, he had many followers. Day by day, the followers were flocking together, and then they decided to spread his teachings, his discovery all over, wherever they could go, and they did that thing. And then he spent about 45 long years, 45 years, he was traveling here and there and teaching, the career of teaching. And after completing 45 years, he, at the age of 80, he passed away. That's also a very important event. And after the passing of the Buddha, 3 months later, and a very important event took place in Buddhist history. That was the monks got together, which we call a council. Council was convened, and important monks at that time, they thought that we need to discuss how to protect Buddha's teachings. He has made many, what do you call the teachings, and he had taught many things, and how are we going to classify them so that we could continue remembering it for the next generations to come. In that way, that monks got together and they rehearsed. That is the word, actually. They did a rehearsal. They did rehearse the Dhamma, or the teachings of the Buddha, and they classified certain things. And that's why we have the Tripitaka, or 3 baskets, where you find Buddha's teachings put into 3 different sections, right? We have learned these things. So that's also a very important historical event in Indian Buddhism. And then another one was the second council. The first council was held after 3 months of the passing of the Buddha, and the second council was held, according to the tradition, around 100 years. Yes, around 100 years later. There were some issues in the Vinaya rules, in the disciplinary conduct of the monks. You know, any given tradition, things change. So the important monks, they thought this is not the way that the Buddha taught us. So we should convene a council and discuss what are the good rules for the conduct of the monks, and what needs to be got rid of, and all those things. So in that way, the monks got together, and the second Buddhist council was held in what we call Vaisali, ancient city of India. And after that council, important thing was the Sangha. Sangha means the disciples, community of monks and nuns. They broke into many sects. We call schism or divisions occurred in the Sangha. So there came to be like 18 schools, small schools. The monks were divided. I mean, they got certain issues, and they divided into 18 different schools. That's also a very important event in Buddhist history. So now you should be able to understand that even in India, things underwent certain changes based on the basic Buddhist teachings, you know. And that's after that, another council was held in during the time of the king Ashoka, the 3rd century BCE. Another Buddhist council was held. That was like after the passing of the Buddha, Usually they say about 200 years, roughly. So that one was convened because there were some monks, so to speak, people became monks in order to get the royal patronage, because the king and the royal people, they were helping the Buddhist monks. So people wanted to become monks and find easy life. Not for they didn't become monks to be real monks, but to get the benefit of royal patronage. So that becomes a problem, when they are not good real monks. It is for the sake of survival, they became monks, and so the important monks wanted to cleanse, to get rid of this bad habit, and they convened a council and checked good monks and, so to speak, the fake monks. And the tradition says that 60,000 of them were uh, expelled from the community of monks. 60,000. I don't know whether the number is correct or wrong, but tradition says so. So anyway, so in order to purge, in order to cleanse the clarity of the Sangha, the third council was held. And a very important thing happened after that. During the time of the King Ashoka, the king was so interested in spreading Buddhism, spreading the pure Buddhism into his own territories and other countries. To do that, he sent out missionaries carrying the Buddha's message. Different missionaries were sent out to different countries. In the tradition, it says 9 different countries, including Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is one of the earliest countries to receive Buddhism. You know where Sri Lanka is. I'm from Sri Lanka, that's why I'm talking about Sri Lanka. And not just Sri Lanka, different parts of India as well as Greece, as far as Greece, from India to Greece, long way. But there were missionary monks traveling to that area. And tradition says that Buddhism went to Burma, Myanmar, also as a result of these missionary activities. And don't believe that, don't ever think that Buddhism went to China and the countries that we are focusing in this class, not as a result of this spread of Buddhism. It happened later. The time period that we are talking is the 3rd century, 3rd century BCE, roughly like 230 years, 250 years after the passing of the Buddha. So in that time, the King Ashoka, we will be talking about him in the next class because it's very important. Very important person in Buddhist history who started the spread of Buddhism, spread of the Buddha's teaching, who shared the Buddha's teaching with the others so that they also can become influenced by the great teaching, the way he looked at it, influence the great teaching of the Buddha. So that's why he wanted to do many things for Buddhism. He really openly said that his subjects, his fellow countrymen should follow these things for the benefit of oneself and for the benefit of the others. Many, many things. We will discuss those things in the next class. So that is one of the great events in Indian Buddhist history, the spread of Buddhism into 9 countries. We use the word countries because different far off places. sometimes today they are not different countries. They are of the same, some parts of India. India is huge, big mass of land. So they recognize it as different countries. So anyway, that is one of the important events. And then after that, there is another council. In the history, they talk about another council by a king, convened by a king called Kanishka. It's a Sarvastivada school of Buddhism. The convener is Sarvastivada. Sarvastivada is one of the schools that evolved after the second council. And they were very powerful in Kashmir area. So this council was held in Kashmir, and it's a very powerful one. That was during the time of Kanishka, like the first century, turn of the first century CE, that period of time. And then this is very important period of time in Indian Buddhism, because the tradition that came to be known as Mahayana, it started in this time period, within the first century BCE and the first century CE, during the turn of the century. That took place in India. Different literatures came, like Prajna Paramita literature, and prominent Buddhist teachers. There are some prominent Buddhist teachers who promoted these things, like Nagarjuna. And this new tradition was really, really, sort of liberal, not rigid practices, but liberal. Buddhism became sort of popularized, a popular religion. So in order to make it popular, they had to, make little changes. Not the basic teachings, remember, not the basic teachings, but cultural things were added so that it could become popular among the masses, among the people, among the followers. So anyway, Mahayana Buddhism, nowadays it's very famous. Theravada is also already was there, like the spread of Buddhism during the time of the Ashoka. The prominent school was Theravada, but afterwards the Mahayana came into being in the first century CE or first century BCE, during that time. And that is the force that developed into a big influential school in Buddhism. And we are paying attention to the Mahayana Buddhist school, how it evolved in these three countries, especially China, Korea, and Japan. Okay, so very important. So that's why I told you that before we discuss about the history of Buddhism in East Asia, we have to recognize the roots of that Buddhism. So the roots are not in anywhere else, only in India. Indian soil, the roots were developed, and then it became into major force in those countries. Okay. I think that's enough for today. If you're talking about the Buddhist history in India, so long, but we stop at that point because we wanted to dig the past history of Mahayana Buddhism, or the historical background to the spread of Buddhism in these East Asian countries. So that's where the roots are. Okay. Hope you enjoy the lecture. And if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me, and you will get a homework and in the email. So please do it within the week and submit it before the next class. and I will keep track of your homework assignments. And finally, at the end of the class, at the end of this quarter, you will get evaluated. So as I have been telling you, please put your name, write down your name in your homework assignments. Okay? Thank you so much. Have a wonderful week.